The auction of Fear the Air was thick with smoke and fear. Chains rattled as slaves were pushed forward one by one under the dim red lights of the alien market. The ground was wet from spilled drinks and blood. Buyers shouted, laughed, and pointed, their strange eyes glowing in the shadows. Lot 72 was next. She was thin but strong, her skin marked with scars from punishments. Her sharp green eyes looked at the crowd, but she kept her head low. In this place, looking at the wrong person could mean pain. The auctioneer, a tall alien with 4 arms and teeth like knives, yanked her forward by the chain. Lot 72, he shouted. Rare breed, young, healthy, strong enough for work and for fun. The crowd laughed. Some aliens licked their lips. Others whispered about prices. She stood still, cold inside. She had been sold before. Every owner was cruel in their own way. But this time, something felt different. In the back of the crowd, she saw him. A human. He looked out of playstall. Broad-shouldered, wearing a worn black coat. His face was calm, but his eyes were strange cold, steady, not like the greedy eyes of the other buyers. He didn't speak to anyone. He didn't even move. But she felt his gaze on her like a weight. Humans had a bad name in the galaxy. People said they were unpredictable, dangerous. Some said they enjoyed pain as slaves. He had never met one before, but she had heard the stories. The bidding started. 50 credits. A fat lizard-like alien shouted. 70. Another called out. 90. Tall insectoid hissed. Then the human spoke for the first time. 150. The whole crowd went quiet for a moment. No one raised the bid. The auctioneer's eyes widened, going once, going twice. His toothy grin grew. Sold to the human. The chain in her hands was passed to him. His grip was strong, but not rough. He didn't smile. He didn't say a word. Kay just turned and started. Walking toward the exit, she stumbled to keep up. Her heart pounded. Why would a human buy me? Her mind filled with the stories she'd heard, stories of secret human labs, torture chambers, experiments that left slaves screaming for days. They stepped out into the cold night air. The market noise faded behind them, replaced by the hum of docking ships and the hiss of steam vents. He led her to a small transport vessel. Its hull was scratched and patched with metal from different ships, like it had survived many battles. Inside, it was quiet. He motioned for her to sit in a corner seat. She sat, keeping her back against the wall. He took the pilot's chair and began pressing controls. The ship's engines rumbled to life. Still, he said nothing. She watched him in the dim light. His hands were large, marked with deep scars. She tried to read his face, but it gave away nothing. She didn't know if that made her more afraid or less. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and cautious. Where are you taking me?" He didn't look at her. "Somewhere far from here." The answer made her stomach twist. Far from here could mean anywhere: a hidden lab, a private arena, or a lonely place where no one would hear her scream. Hours passed in silence. The stars outside stretched into lines as the ship jumped into hyperspace. She couldn't see a clock, but her body ached from sitting still. He didn't chain her to the wall, but the cuffs on her wrists reminded her she wasn't free. She closed her eyes, trying to rest, but her mind kept spinning. Why hadn't he touched her? Why hadn't he even looked at her since the auction? Was he waiting for something? The hum of the ship was the only sound until a small metal cup appeared in front of her. She opened her eyes. He was holding it out. "Water," he said. She took it slowly, expecting a trick, but it was just water. Cold, clean water. She drank, watching him. He didn't stay, just returned to the pilot's seat without a word. Something. About that scared her even more. Slavers who wanted to hurt you usually made it clear right away. They enjoyed the fear, the begging. But this man seemed different, calm, patient, like he could wait forever. When she finally spoke again, her voice trembled. "Why me?" He didn't answer. The silence grew heavier. Outside the window, a small planet came into view, dark, covered in clouds, far from any trade routes. Her fear sharpened. She had heard of places like that. Hidden worlds where screams vanished into the fog, never to be heard again. The ship began to descend. She clenched her fists. Her heartbeat felt like a drum in her ears. She promised herself that if this human tried to hurt her, she would fight even if it meant dying. The ship touched down with a soft thud. The engines powered off. He stood, walked toward the hatch, and pressed the button. The door slid open, revealing the cold wind and strange rocky ground of the unknown planet. He turned to her and said, in that same calm voice, "Come on." She stepped outside, the cuffs still heavy on her wrists, the night air burning her lungs. And in that moment, she thought, this is where it begins, and maybe this is where it ends. The silent journey, the transport ship's doors closed with a heavy hiss. The sound echoed in her ears like the seal of a prison. The human walked ahead without looking back, his boots hitting the metal floor in a steady, almost mechanical rhythm. She followed because the chain between her wrists and his grip left her no choice. They passed through narrow hallways until they reached the cockpit. The place smelled faintly of machine oil and something else, something older, like burned wood. He released her chain but left the cuffs locked. "Sit," he said, pointing to a corner seat. She sat. The hum of the engines started low, then deepened until the whole ship vibrated. A moment later, the stars outside began to shift. The human's hands moved over the controls with the ease of someone who had done this thousands of times. He didn't speak again. That was worse than shouting. Silence gave her space to imagine things. She thought of the stories she'd heard about humans, how they could be friendly one moment and terrifying the next. How they could kill without hesitation, without warning. Her eyes fell to the side of his coat. It was worn and patched, but one of the patches showed a strange symbol, a white wolf's head over a black sun. She didn't know what it meant, but it looked military. She thought about the scars on his hands. Were they from battle or torture? Minutes turned into hours. The stars stretched into glowing lines as the ship entered hyperspace. She pressed herself into the corner, watching him, waiting for some sign, some hint of what he planned to do with her. The human didn't fidget, didn't hum, didn't even check the rear sensors often. Just calm, steady movements. Her mind whispered, he's done this before. Many times, a sound broke the stillness. Click, 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 click. It came from under the pilot's console. She shifted to see. His right foot tapped slowly against the metal floor 3 taps. Pause, 3 taps. It was almost like a code. She didn't ask. She didn't want to give him an excuse to talk about what was coming. Then, without warning, the ship shuddered. The lights flickered once, then steadied. She sat up straight, her heart racing. The human's eyes narrowed, but his hands never stopped moving. "What was that?" she asked, before she could stop herself. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached to the side and flicked a switch. A faint hum filled the air, different from the engine sound. Then a small screen lit up with green dots. One dot blinked closer and closer to the center. A ship was following them. She felt her throat tighten. Is this it? Were his friends coming to join in whatever he had planned? He made another adjustment on the controls, and the stars outside twisted, their lines bending sharply. Her stomach dropped at the sudden change in direction. The dot on the screen moved away slowly at first, then vanished. Only then did he glance back at her. "They're gone," he said simply, as if that explained everything. "Who?" she asked. He turned back to the controls. "Doesn't matter." His voice was calm, but she caught something in it, something like experience. He had been chased. Before? Many times she wanted to ask more, but his silence wrapped around her like chains. After a while, he stood and walked past her. She tensed, ready to defend herself, but he only returned with a small metal container. He set it on the seat beside her and stepped away. Inside were slices of something that looked like fruit, yellow and soft. She stared at it. "It's food," he said, without turning. "Eat or don't." She hesitated. Slavers sometimes gave food to make captives stronger so they could work longer or survive the next punishment. She didn't touch it. Hours later, she woke to the sound of low beeping. The human was leaning back in his seat, eyes half closed but still alert. Outside, a massive planet filled the view, blue and white swirls over deep green land. They were descending. "Where are we?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "Somewhere quiet." The words made her skin crawl. Quiet could mean safe, or it could mean no one would hear her scream. The ship slid through the clouds. The view shifted to mountains rising above. Mist, their dark peaks sharp as blades. Wide rivers shimmered in the distance like silver snakes. It was beautiful, but beauty didn't mean safety. They landed in a small clearing surrounded by tall black trees. No buildings, no people, just wind whispering through the leaves. He powered down the ship, stood, and unhooked her cuffs from the seat. The cold metal still bound her wrists together, but the chain between them was short now, giving her little movement. "Come on," he said. She stepped outside. The air was cold and clean, so unlike the heavy stink of the auction house. But the silence was deep here, too deep. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath. They walked along a narrow dirt path that wound between the trees. No birds, no animals, just the sound of his boots and her careful steps. She tried to slow down, but his hand on her arm kept her moving. Not rough, but firm, like he wasn't going to let go until they reached wherever he was taking her. The path ended at a small building made of dark stone. A metal door waited at the front, its surface scratched by something with claws. He pressed a code into the panel. The door slid open with a heavy sigh, and warm light spilled out. Inside, it wasn't what she expected. No chains on the walls. No cages, just a fireplace, shelves filled with books, and the faint smell of cooking herbs. Still, she didn't relax. The human stepped inside, dropped her chain on a table, and looked at her for the first time since they'd left the auction. "You're safe here," he said. Her heart pounded. Safe? From what? From who? Before she could ask, a voice crackled from the device on the wall. "You can't hide her forever," it said. Her blood ran cold. The human's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. And for the first time, she began to wonder if he had bought her. To protect her, the house in the void, the stone door slid shut behind them with a heavy thud, sealing out the cold mountain wind. The girl stood still, her eyes darting around the strange room. It wasn't what she had expected at all. No chains hung from the walls. No tables covered with sharp tools. Instead, there was a low fire crackling in a stone fireplace, sending soft shadows across shelves stacked with books and jars. A table stood in the center with 2 wooden chairs, but she didn't trust any of it. Beautiful cages were still cages. The human hung his black coat on a hook by the door and walked toward the kitchen area without looking at her. He moved like someone who had lived here for a long time, each step sure, each movement quiet. She stayed near the wall, her cuffed hands close to her chest. Her eyes searched for hidden doors, weapons, or any place he could keep her locked away. He opened a metal pot on the stove. Steam rose into the warm air. The smell of herbs and meat filled the room. Her stomach twisted not from hunger, but from the thought that food could be bait. Finally, he spoke. "Sit." She hesitated, then slowly sat at the edge of the chair. The cuffs clinked against the wood. He placed a bowl in front of her. Thick soup, steaming hot. "Eat," he said simply. She didn't move. She remembered how some slavers used food to make their captives drop their guard. She wouldn't be fooled. He didn't force her. He just sat across from her, eating his own food in silence. The quiet pressed down on her. It was too peaceful. And too strange. After a few minutes, she found herself asking, "Why did you buy me?" His spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then, in that same calm voice, he said, "Because I couldn't leave you there." Her chest tightened. That didn't make sense. Nobody spent that much money at the auction out of kindness. "Don't lie to me," she said, her voice sharper than she meant. His eyes met hers. They weren't cruel, but they weren't warm either. "I don't lie," he said. Before she could ask more, the device on the wall crackled again. A different voice, this time deep, metallic, and mocking. "You can't hide her forever. Human, we'll find her, and when we do," she wished she stayed in the market. Her skin went cold. The human stood, walked to the device, and switched it off without a word. Then he looked at her. "They know you're here," he said. "That means we don't have much time." Her heartbeat quickened. "Who are they?" "Hunters," he said. "The kind who don't stop." She stared at him. "Then why keep me here? Why not give me back? You'd be safe." For the first time, a faint shadow of something anger maybe passed over his face. "They wouldn't just take you, they'd kill you." She swallowed hard. He stood and walked to a small cabinet near the fireplace. Inside were strange items, metal devices, small blades, pieces of armor. He pulled out a small scanner and ran it over her cuffs. The metal clicked, and they fell open, landing on the table with a dull thud. Her wrists were free. She rubbed them slowly, staring at him in shock. "You're letting me go." "Not yet," he said. "But you won't need those in here." That confused her even more. If he wanted control, he would have kept them on. But he wasn't acting like an owner. He noticed her frown. "You still think I'm going to hurt you?" Her silence was the only answer he needed. He sighed, turning back toward the shelves. "Believe what you want. But the longer you think I'm the danger, the harder it'll be to keep you alive." His words sat heavy in her mind. "Keep me alive." It sounded like something a protector would say, not a buyer. That night, he gave her a small room down the hallway. The bed was simple but clean. A small window looked out into the endless black forest. She lay down, but sleep didn't come. The silence outside was unnatural. No animals, no wind, no movement. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath. Hours later, she heard a faint crunch of footsteps outside the house. She sat up, heart pounding. Shadows moved past her window, too fast for normal animals. The shapes were tall, hunched, and carried long weapons. The front door creaked open. She froze. Then, the sound of a blade sliding from its sheath. The human's voice, low and deadly. "You picked the wrong night." A crash followed a short, brutal fight. She heard snarls, the sharp crack of bone, and the heavy thud of bodies hitting the floor, then silence again. Her door opened. The human stood there, his clothes torn, a cut on his cheek. "They know where we are," he said. "Oh, we leave at dawn." And for the first time, she felt something new in his voice. Not just calm, but urgency. She didn't know if he was her captor or her savior. But one thing was certain: someone wanted her badly enough to kill for it. And the human was willing to kill to stop them. The truth in the night, the cold air stung her face as the human led her down the narrow forest path. Dawn had not yet broken, and the sky above was still a deep black sprinkled with fading stars. They moved quickly. He carried a pack over one shoulder and a long weapon in his other hand. She followed close, glancing over her shoulder every few steps. The attack last night had been short, but it had changed everything. Whoever those creatures were, they had found them easily. And the human was certain they would try again. After half an hour of silent walking, they reached a small clearing. His ship stood there, hidden beneath a web of camouflage netting. He pulled it away and unlocked the hatch. Inside, he said, she hesitated, remembering the long, silent journey before. But the forest felt like it was watching her, and the memory of those moving shadows outside her window made her step inside without argument. The ship's engines hummed to life. As they rose above the trees, she finally spoke. Who were they? Hunters, he said. Paid trackers, the worst kind. Her fingers tightened on the seat. Why are they after me? You're not just anything, he cut in, his eyes fixed on the controls. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? He didn't answer right away. The ship banked sharply, climbing higher until the forest below was swallowed by mist. Then he turned to her. Last night, one of them called you something. You heard it, didn't you? She looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. His voice stayed calm, but there was an edge to it now. They called you the runaway heir. Her breath caught. She had hoped he hadn't heard. He leaned forward slightly. Heir to what? I don't want to talk about it. You don't have a choice. The more I know, the better I can keep you alive. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the engines. She stared at her cuffed hands, even though he'd removed the chain between them yesterday. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was low, almost too quiet to hear. My father was the ruler of a sector. Keen, if you want to call it that. He had power, more than anyone should have. When my mother died, things changed. The council wanted him to choose a new heir. He chose me. She swallowed hard. But some people didn't want that. My father's own brother. He betrayed me, he said. I was too young, too weak. He ordered me taken away, sold, so no one would ever see me again. The human didn't move. How long? 2 years, she said. I've been passed from one owner to another ever since. And now they want me back. But not to give me my place. To make sure I never speak of it, sat back in his seat, silent for a long moment. So if they catch you, kill me, she finished for him. He nodded slowly, like pieces were falling into place. Why tell me this now? He asked. Because you're the first one who hasn't hurt me. Her eyes met his. Not yet, anyway. A faint, humorless smile touched his lips. You're learning to trust too slowly, but not slowly enough. Before she could ask what he meant, an alarm blared. The radar screen lit up 2 ships approaching fast from behind. Hold on, he said, flipping switches. The ship shot forward, stars streaking past. Blaster fire lit up the darkness. She gripped the seat as the ship jolted from the impact of near misses. Can't we outrun them? She shouted. Not for long, he said. They're faster. Better armed. Then he did something unexpected. He slowed down. The chasing ships moved closer, weapons glowing. She stared at him like he was insane. What are you doing? Ending it, he said. The enemy ships opened fire, but at the last second, he spun the controls. The human ship twisted in a way she didn't think was possible, sliding under one attacker and slamming a burst of fire into its engines. It exploded in a flash of orange and white. The second ship broke off, but he was ready. He fired twice, hitting its wing. It spiraled into the darkness, trailing smoke. Silence returned. She stared at him. You've fought before. He didn't look at her. A long time ago. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why are you risking your life for me? His answer was quiet but sharp. 'Cause I once failed someone I was supposed to protect. I'm not failing again. She didn't ask who that person was. She could tell from his voice it wasn't a story he would tell. They flew on for hours until a dead, silent moon appeared ahead. Its surface was cracked and broken, with deep shadows stretching across its barren plains. He landed in a narrow canyon and shut down the ship. The place felt cold and forgotten, like even time avoided it. This is where we hide, he said. For now, she followed him out into the moon's pale light. But even here, far from the hunters, she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was close, and she wondered if the human was telling her everything he knew. The past revealed the canyon walls rose high on both sides, jagged like broken teeth. The human ship sat hidden in the shadows, its metal skin blending into the gray rock dot inside. The air was cold. The girl sat at the small table, her eyes on the cracks in the floor. The silence between them felt heavier than the moon's stillness. Outside, he was cleaning his weapon, moving with slow, careful precision. Every motion was deliberate, wiping the barrel, checking the charge, locking the pieces back into place. She watched his hands, noting the small scars across his knuckles and fingers. Finally, she spoke. They'll find us again, won't they? Yes. He said without looking up. They always do. Then why stop here? We needed rest, he said. And we need to talk. Her chest tightened. About what? About the truth, he said. About you and about me. She didn't like the way he said it, like they'd both been carrying secrets that were too heavy to hide anymore. You already know who I am, she said cautiously. I know part of it, he replied, but I need to know the rest. Hesitated. There's nothing more to tell. His eyes lifted to hers. They were steady, unblinking. Don't lie to me. You've been hunted for 2 years, moved from owner to owner. Yet, you're still alive. That doesn't happen by accident. She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. The truth was, she didn't even know why they hadn't killed her already. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. Keeping you alive for a reason. And I need to know what it is before they come again. Her hands curled into fists. And what about you? You walk into a slave auction and spend more credits than most people see in a lifetime on me. You fought like a soldier. You know how to hide like a ghost. Who are you? Really? His jaw tightened. I was a soldier, he said. A long time ago. She waited for more, but he didn't continue. That's it? She asked. That's your big truth? No, he said quietly. That's the part I can say without. Remembering too much, she leaned forward. Tell me. His eyes drifted to the floor, as if he were looking at something far away, something only he could see. There was a war, he began. Humans against a coalition of alien worlds. I was part of an infiltration unit. We went behind enemy lines to rescue prisoners, to take out targets. We were good at it. Too good. He paused, and his voice grew heavier. One mission. We were sent to extract a diplomat's family, a woman and her daughter. We got there too late. The enemy had already taken them. Her breath caught, though she didn't know why yet. We tracked them for days, finally found their transport. But he stopped, closing his eyes for a moment. We couldn't save the mother. The girl, we pulled her out, but she was terrified. She didn't speak for weeks. She swallowed hard. What happened to her? I promised her I'd keep her safe, he said. And I failed. She was taken again, months later. I never saw her after that. The silence stretched. The fire in the corner flickered, shadows, shifting across his face. "That's why you bought me," she said slowly. "Because you couldn't save her." His gaze met hers. "Because I won't make the same mistake twice." Her throat felt tight. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes, not coldness, not calculation, but a deep, unspoken pain. Before she could respond, a faint beeping broke the moment. He turned to the console and checked the screen. His expression darkened. "They've found us," he said. Her pulse jumped. He was already moving, grabbing his coat and weapon. "They're close. Too close." She stood, panic rising. "We can leave no time," he cut in. "We hold them here. Here. But listen to me." His voice was sharp now, but not cruel. "They're coming because of you. And if they take you, everything you told me about your father, your uncle Let, won't matter. You'll be dead before you ever see your home again." Her hands trembled. "Then let me fight." He stared at her for a long moment, then tossed her a small blaster from the weapons rack. "Stay behind me. Shoot if you have to." She caught it awkwardly, its weight unfamiliar in her hands. "What if I miss?" "Then shoot again." The sound of engines echoed faintly through the canyon. Shadows moved at the mouth of the cave. Growing larger, she gripped the blaster tighter, her fear mixing with something else, something sharper. The human took a position near the entrance, his weapon ready. "No matter what happens," he said without turning, "don't let them take you alive." She wanted to ask what that meant, but then the first figure stepped into the light, tall, armored, and carrying a jagged spear. The hunters were here. The flight through the stars, the first shot lit up the canyon like lightning. The girl flinched as red energy bolts struck the stone walls, sending shards of rock scattering. The human didn't move. He fired back with sharp, precise bursts, each one forcing the attackers to take cover. "Move," he shouted. She ran for the ship, heart pounding, the blaster clutched in her shaking hands. Behind her, the humans' fire kept the hunters at bay, but their numbers were growing. More shadows poured into the canyon, their weapons glowing in. The dark dot, she reached the hatch and scrambled inside. The human was right behind her, slamming the door shut and locking it. "Strap in," he ordered. The engines roared as he jumped into the pilot's seat and powered up the thrusters. The ship lifted from the ground, shaking under the force of incoming fire. The hull groaned as several bolts struck it, but the shields held barely. "They've got a blockade ship above us," he said. She twisted in her seat to see through the rear viewport. A massive vessel hovered above the canyon's rim, its cannons already tracking them. "We can't fight that," she yelled. "Not planning to," he said, pushing the throttle forward. The ship shot straight toward the blockade vessel. She gasped. "Are you insane?" But just before they would have collided, he twisted the controls. The ship rolled sharply, sliding under the enemy vessel's belly. So close, she could see the heat vents glowing. The human fired 2 quick shots, both hitting the smaller turrets on the underside, then dived toward open space. The blockade ship spun to follow, but they were already weaving through the jagged edges of a nearby asteroid field. The girl's stomach dropped with each sudden turn. "You've done this before, haven't you?" His eyes stayed on the path ahead, once or twice. The asteroids loomed like floating mountains, some spinning slowly, others breaking apart into smaller fragments. He threaded the ship through narrow gaps, sometimes missing jagged rock by only meters. Behind them, 2 hunter craft followed, more agile than the blockade ship, but still struggling to match his movements. "They're still on us," she shouted. He didn't answer. Instead, he flicked a switch and a panel lit up with targeting data. "See that asteroid ahead? The one with the big crack down the middle." She spotted it, a massive chunk of rock split almost in half, glowing. faintly from some strange mineral inside. "Hold on," he said. They dove straight toward the crack. At the last second, the ship tilted and slid sideways through the gap. One of the hunters tried to follow, but the asteroid shifted, closing just enough to shear off the attacker's wing. The craft spun away, exploding in a flash. "One left," he said calmly. The remaining hunter stayed close, weaving through the asteroids with more caution now. The girl's grip on the armrest tightened. "We're not going to lose them like this." "Exactly," he said, flipping another switch. A small compartment under the ship opened, releasing a trail of glowing metal shards. The hunter's sensors, confused by the sudden debris, misread the path ahead. It turned too sharply to avoid the shard straight into a spinning asteroid. The impact was instant and final. Silence filled the cockpit except for the hum of the engines. The stars ahead looked cold and endless. "They won't." "Stop sending more," the girl said. "I know," he replied. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she asked, "Why help me?" "You could have left me in the canyon, saved yourself." His eyes stayed on the star lines ahead. "I told you, I don't fail twice." Something inside her shifted at those words. She didn't want to admit it, but part of her trusted him now. They flew in silence for another hour before she noticed a faint, blinking light on the navigation panel. "What's that?" "A place to land," he said. "But not for long, just enough to resupply." The blinking dot grew larger until it became a station's mall, built into the side of a hollow asteroid. It looked abandoned, but dim lights still glowed in the docking bay. As they approached, he handed her the blaster again. "Keep this with you. Even here, we're not safe." "Is anywhere safe?" she asked. He didn't answer. They landed, and the docking bay doors closed behind them. Inside, the air smelled stale, like it had been recycled for years. They stepped out into dim light, their footsteps echoing on the metal floor. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall alien with pale blue skin and a long coat. He looked at the girl, then at the human. "You brought her here. You must be desperate." "She needs supplies," the human said. The alien laughed softly. "Supplies? Yes. Safety? No. You've painted a target on both your backs." The girl glanced at the human. "Do you know him? Old contact?" he said simply. "Owes me a favor." Gah. The alien's eyes narrowed. "This favor could cost me my life." "You know who's looking for her?" "I know," the human said. "That's why we can't stay." The alien studied the girl for a long moment before stepping aside. "Get what you need, but leave fast. The hunters. They're closer than you think." Her stomach turned. The words felt like a shadow creeping over her, and as they walked deeper into the station, she realized something terrifying. Every step forward meant fewer places to hide. The final stand-up. Station's metal walls groaned under the weight of silence. The human moved quickly, filling a pack with food, water, and energy cells. The girl stayed near the entrance, the blaster warm in her hand. Every sound made her tense, the distant hum of the generators, the echo of footsteps somewhere. In the dark, the alien contact kept glancing toward the docking bay doors. "They'll be here soon," he muttered. "You should have never come." "We didn't have a choice," the human said. A deep boom shook the floor. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The alien's eyes widened. "They've found you." The girl's heart pounded. "How many?" The alien gave a grim smile. "Enough to kill everyone in here." The human didn't waste time. "We hold them at the bay doors. If they get inside, it's over." They ran to the docking bay. The massive doors trembled as heavy impacts slammed against them. The sound was like a giant beast trying to break free. The human crouched by a control panel, typing in commands. "I'm locking the inner gates," he said. "It'll buy us a few minutes." "What about the ship?" the girl asked. "They'll target it first," he said, without looking. "Up, we'll have to fight our way out before we can reach it." The pounding grew louder. Then the doors split apart, and the hunters poured in. They were fast-armored figures with glowing visors and long rifles. The human's weapon flashed, dropping the first three before they could fire. The girl raised her blaster and shot. The recoil jolting her shoulder. One of the hunters fell, its armor smoking, the air filled with the deafening roar of gunfire. Sparks burst from the walls. The floor shook under heavy boots. "Move!" the human shouted, pushing forward. They fought their way toward the ship, each step a battle. The girl's aim grew steadier. Her fear had burned away, replaced by something fierce. But there were too many. A sharp cry came from the alien contact as a bolt struck his chest. He fell, UNMOVING. The human's jaw tightened. He grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her behind a cargo crate. "We're not making it like this," he said. Her breath came fast. "Then what?" His eyes were calm to calm. "I'll hold them." "You get to the ship?" She shook her head. "No." "Yes," he said firmly. "Once you're clear, I'll follow." She saw the truth in his eyes. He didn't plan to follow. "No," she shouted. "I'm not leaving you." He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "You have to? You're the heir. You can take back what was stolen from you. I can't. My fight ends here." Tears stung her eyes, but there was no time to argue. The hunters regrouped. Their leader stepping forward, a towering figure in black armor, holding a spear that pulsed with blue energy. His voice boomed through a speaker. "Hand over the girl, human, and you might live." The human stepped out from cover, weapon raised. "Come and take her." The leader charged. The fight was brutal metal against metal, weapon against spear. Sparks lit the air as the human blocked, dodged, and struck. The girl fired at the hunters, trying to flank him. Each shot a desperate attempt to keep them back. Then the leader's spear caught the human's side. He staggered, blood darkening his coat. "Go," he shouted. She hesitated for one heartbeat. Too long until two hunters rushed her. She fired twice, dropping them both, then ran for the ship. Behind her, the human roared. Driving the leader back with a flurry of strikes, she reached the hatch, slamming the controls. The engines roared to life. Through the viewport, she saw him still fighting, his movements slowing, but his strikes still deadly. Then the leader lunged again only for the human to grab the spear and twist, pulling the armored giant close. With one final burst of strength, he activated a small device on his belt. A blinding flash erupted. Engulfing the bay, the blast wave hit the ship, shoving it back. She gripped the controls, tears blurring her vision. When the light faded, the bay was a smoking ruin. The hunters were gone. The human was gone too. Her hands shook as she lifted the ship into the stars. For a long time, she didn't move, didn't speak. The silence in the cockpit was heavy, but inside her chest, something else burned: anger, determination, and a promise. She looked at the navigation panel and set a course. Not away from danger, but toward her homeworld. Oh, toward the throne that had been stolen from her. "They'll pay," she whispered. "For him, for me, for all of it." The stars stretched before her, endless and cold. But she wasn't afraid anymore, because she wasn't running now. She was going to war.